Hi, everyone. Good evening. I've got Dustin on today. We're going to talk about the Bock Saga. I was going to have Shep Ambellis talk about Miami, but he had an issue with his dog. He just got back from the vet, so we're going to do that Wednesday. So, without further ado, let's get into the Bock Saga. How's it going, Dustin?
Hey, pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, man. Yeah, no. So I found you on Twitter. Your profile was what, Bock Saga X, and I read your profile, and you're pretty deep into it. And I've always wanted to go over it, but I've never really found anyone that really put the time and effort into it because it's an oral tradition passed down, isn't it not?
Yeah.
Right. And mostly, you can make the argument that since writing, and even since cell phones, we used to have to remember people's cell phone number. We used to have to remember stories, but now with writing, we don't have to do any of that. Now with the iPhone, we don't have to remember people's phone numbers, our closest friends. So there's some interesting stuff going on there, but why don't you just take us through what you have?
It's it's a big question or a big ask. It's difficult to know where to start, but the Bock Saga is this story of it's a mythology, it's a history, and it's a language sound system, and it is from the North Pole. So and it has I came across it, and once I heard it, there was quite a few aha moments in the beginning, and then I just invested hours and hours and hours into just hearing the saga, hearing it, listening to it, and every time I would listen to it, I would get more and more out of it. But what you were saying about when this is a big part of the story is when ink hit paper is when a lot of things started changing, and it really messed things up because anyone could write anything they want. Yeah. And kind of just how you write your books is the only real way to portray truth is in allegory.
Yes.
Yeah, especially in writing. Whereas in the Bock Saga, it's in the sounds, right? The sound came before the words. And in the Bock Saga, each sound has a meaning. And there's 29 sounds that are the human faces naturally make. Just like a dog barks, a cow goes moo. Humans have these sounds that we make, and then we construct them together, and we form words. We construct the words together. We form sentences, and we develop. It fractals out. And
it's interesting.
And what was really mind blowing in the Bock Saga is it's the English language is formed from these first two languages. The Swedish language is the closest thing to it that's in writing, but it's specifically this Finnish dialect of the Swedish language that's only spoken. There's no written dictionary or anything about this root language. And it means root just in the same thing as like a tree's roots. It's where all other languages, sound systems sprouted from. Mm-hmm. And the more and more you look into the Bock Saga, the more and more it's reconfirms in all of the words we use, and it seems to cover every continent. And so anyway, yeah, it's hard for me to know where to start, but if you want to, ask some questions or something like that.
So it's interesting. Would you not agree, like you said, that the best way to tell truth is through allegory, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. But would you not also agree that that's one of our biggest problems too, is because people are taking this stuff literally?
Yes. So in the Bock Saga, what I really like about it is it takes all the woo-woo and allegory out of it, and it does using the words in our language tells the story. So each word is a complete saga in of itself. Yeah.
Interesting. So
yeah, and they can all be broken down just as like so in the saga, something I've recreated from the original storytellers is our alphabet. and how it was actually imagined as a ring. And when you you can connect the letters using geometric shapes. It's this wheel is created from the flower of life, and all of our letters. Yeah, that's it right there. So that's our alphabet, and there's actually more letters, and there's a lot more to it. But I am not. I don't know how to do it. But I was able to kind of recreate it and copy it down and get a general idea of that. But the Bock Saga is a very solar oriented, where the sun is acknowledged as the ultimate creator, and the saga says the sun has always been and will always be. And so there's this cosmology of how the earth was created, to where all the people came from, how the earth was populated by the people at the North Pole. And it talks about multiple cataclysms, including the first one, which is when the earth received its tilt. And when this first tilt happened, humans were already here before the earth was tilted.
Are you talking about the 23.5 degree tilt that goes around and gives us the seasons?
Absolutely. That is before that time. So in the Bock Saga, I mean, you kind of have to suspend your disbelief with a lot of the things in the saga and just hear it, and you can think about it later. But it connects to almost everything, all the other mythologies, all the symbols, the words, and the names, everything somehow all connects back to this area known as Hell on the North Pole. Today, we call this spot Helsinki. So this is in Finland. And this is a major, if you study Viking history and kind of just what was happening after the Greeks to the Romans and to the church coming up and going to war with these Vikings. Vikings are portrayed as, these mysterious white giants that are, have all this. But from the saga side of perspective, they were more defending themselves. And there's evidence. There's evidence of humans inhabiting that place hundreds of thousands of years ago. But the saga talks about millions of years ago. And when I heard this the first time, I just felt like clearly humans are far more ancient than anyone claims, that we can even provide evidence for. Humans, we're so advanced, and this is the Bock Saga is the only thing I've ever heard that acknowledges that we are these ancient beings, and the entire language is constructed in this time that they call paradise, which is the time before the ice, paradise, right? And there's other meanings in there. You got ra and pa. Ra,
that was going to be one of my questions.
Yeah.
One of my questions was going to be, when you're talking about the North Pole or Hell or Helsinki, that area, you're talking about a time before there was ice. You're talking
absolutely. So in the Bock Saga, before the tilt, in this time they call the paradise. Yeah. The axle of the planet, the axis, the North Pole, the pole, going to the top of the planet was upright and perpendicular to the sun. And at this time, there's on the top of the planet in this area, it's a little island, 3 kilometers off the coast of Helsinki, still there to this day. There's a museum on this spot where the actual true axis of the planet is. And at this time, there was a 250 kilometer ring, and the sun would go around and never set. It would go around this area. And they call this, the sun is called Odin, O-D-E-N, not this later mythological character with an Odin, right. That we hear about in Nordic mythology, but Odin. And
right, but aren't there also places in, like, for example, Alaska, right, where there is a period of time where the sun doesn't set, and there's a period of time where the sun doesn't come up?
absolutely. Well, if you imagine the everything being perpendicular and without the tilt, specifically, the rest of the world will have some form of night and day. But on the North Pole, the sun never sets. And to this day, around the area around Helsinki, they call Uudenmaa. So this Ma means land or earth, and it's the land of Uden. It's the area, and it's still, you ask anyone there to this day, where are we? Oh, you're in Uudenmaa, yeah. And in this time is when all the humans started. The Bock Saga is this. It even explains exactly how they populated the Earth, the system in which they used to populate the Earth, and it just makes sense of all of these inversions we have of all of our words and meanings and allegory and everything that's written down. It's, we know it's inverted, and we just don't know what it was inverted from. But we know, we're just trying to figure it out, and that's why I appreciate your work so much, because it's bringing clarity to what all this mess of we've made in the last few thousand years of the world. But this, going back to paradise,
right?
You have this time of paradise, and you have this ringland. They call it the ringland, Uudenmaa, where the sun goes around, and you have an all-father. So basically a king, but not a king. It's he's the all-father, the Alpha, the all-father, and he's literally the all-father. He literally is making hundreds of kids every year, and over the course of his life, and then once one of his sons becomes a certain age, he takes on the title of the all-father, and it continues on like that. And so this also makes sense of how kings or rulers can live tens of thousands of years or in perpetuity, is because it's more of a title rather than a specific one person.
Right.
It's a lineage. It keeps going. Yeah.
Interesting. So take me through this design that we have put up here real quick.
Sure. Yeah,
I was looking at it before, and if you're going clockwise, you can kind of see all the rudimentary symbols for our alphabet minus U, V, X, Y, Z.
U and V is in there. If you look at the T,
yeah, that's
the U is above the T, and then it makes the V as well.
Gotcha.
But there is an X, Y, Z, and there's also the character. So these are just the marks representing the sound. So the sound comes first, right? And each sound has a meaning. And in this root language, this is actually a poem, a rhyme, if you will. Okay. And it starts, the first letter is actually the pole in the middle of the circle, the letter I. And you'll see at the top of the W, there's a dot. Yeah. And the W is not an actual letter in this root language alphabet. This came later, combining the two languages. So you have the Osser language, the root language, and then you have the Vonner language, which is this second language. The Osser language is an anatomical language. This is also another hint at this as being a first language, because it's purely describing the anatomy and using the human anatomy to describe the world around us. Yeah, and then this other language, still spoken today in Finland, the Finnish language, was also created from this original root language, but it's was designed to describe more and more things as more and more things needed to be described. This root language is more basic. There's not a lot of words, but there's the core sounds in which all of our words now to this day are constructed from.
It's interesting because I'm looking, if you follow the line straight down under the W, it brings you to the K. To the right of that is the J. but the J didn't come into the English language until 1524, but it's clearly here. So like it was already set there. It just wasn't being used. The other thing I wanted to remind you guys is all the way at the top, if we go all the way back up to the W, here we call it a W in English, but it's not a W. It's a double V if you look at it. In French, it's called a W, a double V, not a W. Mm-hmm. So there are changes on one side, but what does this story tell you when you look at this drawing?
Well, I can I have to pull up this book real quick just to recite the root language part of it, because each character has a meaning. So E, I could just do it with like this. So the first letter is the I, and the W actually represents the trisul, the tribal, the trident, and this came later. Around the Viking era, or when at the creation of the English language, we created the W. And another thing to back you up on where we got that name, the confusion is they didn't have a V in Greek, I believe, and they called that the U. And so it's just kind of ended up being called the W later.
Right, because there is no V in Greek. It's only a U for upsilon.
Yeah, but it's that character, the V. Right. They called the V the U, or yeah. So the first letter, the I, which is pronounced E. So the sounds are going to be very, very important, because to really understand how this English language is constructed, right? We have a lot of words that make the same exact sound, right? One, or one with the W. I won. You are one, right? And that's a hint towards Von. The Von language is the one language. And that symbol, the E, is the North Pole pointing to the North Star. And it's at the top of the circle.
Right.
A stands for Osser. B stands for Borge, which is like castle. Similar to Hebrew. Hebrew also has Aleph, and then Bete, which is like house, right? In or out. It's kind of representing that being the difference of what you eat and what you, whatever. Anyway, and then the CD, the C and the D. This is a that's like sharing the drink. Yeah. And it also is representing the moon. So the C is actually an S. If you look at that, and then the line below it makes the D. So this is where you get all your SK words, or Scorpio. And if this is also a calendar, Scorpio is right there in between the C and the D. It's also a clock. There's also, anyway, I don't want to get too detailed. Right. And then E stands for Ek, which is oak in English, the oak tree. And this is the story of the family tree. Where in heathen times, so this is a very heathen mythology. This predates any religion, every religion. This predates by millions of years. Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but would you do me a favor? I don't like that word heathen if you leave it untranslated. Can you explain what heathen originally meant to people, as opposed to what the religious say it is now?
Yeah, before the propaganda. So heathen, it would be more heathen. The word heathen probably came later, but you also get your words like heaven from heathen. It's sprouted a lot, but yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of inversion, a lot of assignment of assigning evil, good and evil to words, right? And in the Bock Saga, there is no good or evil. There's just nature, and then going away from nature. Yeah. So I can't really explain it too much, except that when you start connecting letters with lines and rings, you start getting all the different associations for all the words. Yeah. Like you can do Saturn, or you can do Aries. And and they start connecting. So now you get words like, if you connect Aries, you also get the word arise, and it also makes an equilateral triangle in here, and points right at Aries, which is right where that Q is. You get all kinds of, all of our languages fractal out. This is the flower of life. I erased all of the lines so you can't see the flower of life. It just looks like it's just a circle with these letters. But I recreated this, making the flower of life just a bunch of rings and lines, poles and holes, baby. Everything's poles and holes.
Guys, what you're looking at here, when he said that Aries is the Q, that's all the way to the left. Remember the wheel that I show you guys all the time. Cancer's at top and Capricorn's at the bottom. Aries is on the left, Libra's on the right. It's the solstices and the equinox.
So on this one, it's actually flipped, where Capricorn is at the top.
Oh, so this is
in this particular one. But things change. There's different ways to look at it. But as I understood it, is Capricorn is at the top and Cancer is at the bottom, on where the K is. So for Cancer, and the goat climbs the mountain, and the W is kind of like an upside down M for the mountain. But with the oak tree, this is representing all the men. This is the man's tree. This is the sperm tree, where the All-Father creates all the next caste of people, the neck class, the necklace, and the necklace, from the neck of his prick. F is for Frey or Freya, representing the first two humans. G is Grund for ground, and H is Ho. It stands for home or hell, and where home is in hell. And in this location that they call Helsinki today, which sunk under the ice of the ice time, it even shows that the H does go a little bit outside the circle. One of its legs is going out. And in the mythology there is from the axle of the planet, there is a hole. So there is a place you can go inside the earth and enter through this hole on the top of the planet, this where hell is. And this is one of the major words, right? That hell is like the worst thing in the world, right? We know that later it became a more representing wintertime, Infierno versus Invierno, But in this story, it also says, is it bad to be healthy, or to ask for help, or help being Hellenistic? So this is Os Hell, the Osser's home, Os Hell. And you flip that, you got Hellas. These are the same, coming from the same people, the Hellas people, the Greeks, the Os Hell. And moving on, the next, there's another I, or E is pronounced, right? And this one is representing the man and the sperm. The man's prick and the sperm coming out. And the J, K, R is Jarl and Carl. So like you were saying, that this J sound, that is probably what didn't exist. But J is pronounced Y, like more like a Y in English.
Same thing in Hebrew.
Same thing in Hebrew?
You have Yaakov is Jacob, Jonathan is Jonathan, Yeshua is Joshua. It's the same thing.
Yeah, so that pronunciation is preserved in this as well, and that stands for the Jarl. And Jarl in English would be Earl, like upper middle class. The highest class of people outside of Udenma. And the Jarl class is made in hell from the prick of the people in hell. And the Carl class are made from the Jarl class. This one, Carl, is maintained a lot in India, which used to be Hindustan, and that's a big story in the saga as well. And this is my favorite coming up here, the LMNOPQ. this is my personal favorite part of the wheel. I love math. I love making this. I love making this thing. But this is the logic of the moon and the North Star and the universe through the pole in the hole. A pole gives you quadrat, which is mathematics. So the logic of the moon and the North Star, and O stands for Udin, which is, you can just say it's the universe. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also the sun. But, and then the P is pole. So women have a P, which is the hole in the P, and then men have the pole. And this is where you get all the P-pole. Yeah. And using this like a sundial, that is what the Q is the shadow that is cast from the sun going around a pole in the hole. Yeah, pretty fun. I like that one. And if you notice on the Q, it actually points right back to the beginning of the L. And these angles are, all the angles of the letters are formed by the angles of the moon and the sun. So it's very solar related. Now, to get into that is your next few letters, R, S, T. Well, RST is so R is Ra. And in the Bock Saga, it's Ra isn't the sun god, it's the moon. And also the Bock Saga claims that the first fair Ra, was an Osir man. And you can see that he's depicted with blue eyes and blonde hair and stuff like that, and a nice Bock beard. Bock means goat, essentially, which is Capricorn. Capricorn in Swedish is Stenbacken. And the RS, this is talking about the sun and the moon. And this is showing that the moon gets its light from the sun, from the S, the strolar. Yeah. And the strolar, S means Sulin, but the rays, the rays that come off of the sun is also called strawlar. And straw is like grass, the straw. And the lar, that's all the grass grows from the light of the sun, so they call it strolar. And then you get the R, and then TUV. T is tour. This is a big story, but it basically means heart, and or best friend or heart friend. And this is saying that the relationship of the sun, the moon, and the sun, they're best friends. And this is where, and U stands for Ursprung, which is where we get our words like spring, like a water spring, or springtime, or to spring out, to spring into action. Yeah, it's all of those meanings all at the same time in the word Ursprung. And U-R-S-P, like sprung, like past tense sprung, sprung out of. U-R means clock, the face of a clock. So we all come out of the faces, the face of the clock, out of the clock, from that relationship of the sun, the moon, the sun, being best friends. And then this is also the origin of the Vonner people. And the W this one came later. So this previously just meant trisul, like the trident, tribal.
Wow.
Questions?
No, it's very interesting. It's very esoteric. I find it to be. Did you see my video that I did where I wrapped the Phoenician alphabet in a circle and showed how it was the zodiac signs? Did you happen to see that one?
Yeah.
I can't imagine how this would look if you were to actually do the same thing. But this is a wonderful story. You can see, just by you explaining the letters, you can see how this has evolved over time into the current stories that we have now. This is a very rudimentary but beautiful story that has evolved over time. I think about, I don't know if you've ever read the Canterbury Tales when you were younger. Sorry, I didn't mean to remove you. I meant to remove this. Um, I don't know if you ever read the Canterbury Tales when you were younger, but Geoffrey Chaucer's work is from the 1300s, and you can see how the English and the storytelling has evolved. We've always been incredibly spiritual. We've always been incredibly deep with the metaphorical stories. The problem with humanity is when they start to believe these things are literal. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, um, if you were to start researching into the Bock Saga, what would you? I mean, could you just get it online?
So the Bock Saga is an oral story that was passed down through one of this family that has been here since paradise. As it's claimed. Okay, so again, we're gonna have to suspend your disbelief for a little bit just to take it all in and understand it. Because even if it's somehow, I mean, even if it's there's you can't believe it, right?
Right.
But I've come to understand it, and this is the big difference, right? Right in the middle of the word belief is the word lie, yeah, and just saying that word implies the doubt that we have of whatever we're believing in, yeah. But the word belief is a Bock Saga story, and I would love to share it real quick. It's
Yes,
kind of a
please.
change of subject, but
Yeah.
but in these ancient times, we can say, um, when we would die, they didn't want a big graveyard of a planet like we have today, where there's just bones everywhere and just death and just skeletons. Everyone was burned, yeah, and they believed that when from our ashes is the most concentrated. There's no water. It's pure sunlight, pure the 12 minerals that are. This is something you know more about than me, but basically in the ash is the 2 pounds of ash that is left over from our bodies. This is everything that makes up life. And we have a family tree. And under this family tree, we would put our ashes, and the tree's roots would take our ashes and put it up into its mahla, the sap. And it would, through the sap, it would take our ashes and take it up out to the branches and form the leaves. So your life becomes the leaf. And this is when you be leaf. This is when you become the leaf. And this is the belief system. I love that one.
No, that's great.
Yeah,
Great.
and but we all come from a family tree, right? We all come from the logos, yeah, the logs, the logos. We all know that the trees keep, and you can read their rings, how old they are, how ancient they are. These, we keep a ship's log. There's all kinds of way this word gets used, but it's a nature word. Even in Star Trek, it's the captain's log. Like you can't escape it. This is it. Everything comes from nature, and the little the seed, the acorn, it is representing our souls. Yeah, and so the oak tree is a big one. This is where you get your word like technology. Ek is oak. Yeah, technology. Yeah, logi is the logic of the tree. Yeah, and the women have their own tree as well, and still to this day they call it the ash tree. And this was this is the letter Y, which is actually outside of the ring of letters. There's six more characters outside of the ring that are not inside of the ring. There are different sounds. There's 29 total sounds. One of them is the Y, and that stands for Yggdrasil. Yeah, the YGG, whatever. And this is the women's ash tree. So the women have their own tree as well, the feminine side. And that's one of the big things that's missing out of all of our esoteric knowledge, all of everything is the feminine side, the divine feminine, we have plenty of poles. We need some more holes, in our understanding of things. Right. Yeah.
Right.
Do you want me to read just kind of in English what the actual rhyme is from the letter wheel?
Sure.
Okay. In the castle of the Ossar, the drink is shared from the seed of the oak tree, or the family tree that originates in hell. In the law of the Jarl and the Carl, the moon, the North Star, the universe, and the pole, the Earth's axis and the galactic axis, are the quantities that, with mathematics of how all of these previous concepts interact, calculate how Ra, the energy or the light reflected off the moon from the sun, together with the heart, the love and heart, are the origin of the Vonner people. Now, the Vonner people is everybody outside of this area of Udenma. This is originally. Now, when we fast forward past these destructions, there have been 3 total destructions in hell. The first one was when the planet tilted. And when the planet tilted, the story goes that all the oceans evaporated, and this marine layer went all the way to the poles and rained down ice walls on the top and bottom of the planet. And in this area, in the Baltic Sea off the coast of Helsinki, in this area called Udenma, there's a warm water current coming from the Gulf of Mexico, the Gulf Stream. They still call it today. We have the Gulf Stream pipeline. We have the Gulf Stream airlines. This Gulf Stream kept hell from freezing over. And during this time, not many people survived, but they did. And in this time, they call this time period in English, all the land's ice. And in this root language, it's pronounced Altlantis. Sound familiar? It's a time period, Altlantis. Yeah? And all the land's ice. Now, all the lands are not just the land that we call it. It's the places with the word land in it. England, Iceland, Greenland, Russia used to be called Rusland, and this Rusland also went all the way to the Americas as well, to where we call Canada today, Alaska. All that was also Rusland. We got Frankenland all the way down to the Alps and the Pyrenees Mountains in Europe. All of this was ice. These are all the land's ice, and the association of that first L, alt. So it's not Atlantis, it's Altlantis. And that association is lost because we have the Atlantic Ocean. Right. But all the land's ice. And it is during this time when a lot of things were developed where they were forced underground often throughout the year, and were had to create technology. And I'm not talking advanced technology. That's just a way to live, to develop a farmer's almanac. Yeah. And encode it in the stars, and they our words astrology, our words horoscope. These are all root language words that can be broken down into their individual sounds to get their very specific meaning of what these words are saying. Yeah, like astrology. That's Ossar, true logic. Astrology, the true logic of the Ossar. Yeah, and then you have horoscope, where the women would create these really beautiful crystal balls, or they would have like these lenses they would make, and they would use hair, specifically from a horse. They would use horsehair, and they would put it on the lens, and when you put a candle under it, it would go through the caverns, and it would beam the light from it was described as a crystal ball with a prism on the inside, a second crystal on the inside. And by putting horsehairs on top of it, you can put it in the middle of a room with a big ceiling, and with just a little fire, it would display the stars. This is the word for horsehair is hor. O scope. Scope is a lens. Horoscope. This is, I mean, at some point, this is way beyond coincidence because it's all of our freaking words that we use in English language, the Swedish language, the Finnish language, the German languages. It's going down to the Sanskrit language. The word Sanskrit, that's a root language word. I mean, it's unescapable.
This is fantastic. I want you to take me through the disbursement of the human population, because everyone always wants to know, where the hell did we come from? Where was the original man? So what does the Bock Saga say about humanity and where they moved from, or things of that nature?
So during Paradise, you have Udenma, which is the North Pole, the top of the axis. The sun never sets. We are all tropical people. This is where the first people came out of. And it's almost hard to avoid this flat Earth versus round Earth concept. Yeah. But what's cool about the Bock Saga is it doesn't matter which model you're using. The North Pole is still in the center.
Right.
Okay. So, but in the saga, there is a ball and a lance through the ball. And this is when the world was in balance, in balance. Okay. I just wanted to throw that out there. But on the top of this North Pole is where the first two people came out of, from an ape, and a Bock, a nanny goat. So this is this one's another one where you're gonna have to suspend your disbelief. We do call our little cells zygotes. We do call goats kids, and we call our kids kids. There's quite a few different connections, but besides that, they had a system. Okay, it's a class system, a pyramidal system to make all of the people, and they coordinated it like a beehive. So they made these. They weren't going to use rings, but they couldn't use rings because there's going to be empty spaces in between the rings. So they turned it to a hexagon. Okay, and just like bees, this
honeycomb.
Mm-hmm. Just like bees, they would have the Allfather, and then he would have a certain number of sons, and then he would continue to make sons until and daughters until his 12th son turned a certain age, and then he would become the new Allfather at the 12th son. Then you had, and he was making the next class of people, and that class, they made a second. You made the Osser people and then the Vonner people, and so the most beautiful, healthy women from the Vonner side would come and make the next children for the third class, which is the Carl class or the Jarl class, and then you have the Carl class, and then after that you have the Trall class. So these are all ets. So like in the word like planet or Carlet or pirouette or rosette, these are et means family, and or it means one, but generally it's like family in this context. So they would make more men. One man, one shot of sperm, one shot can make we all know there's millions sperm. One woman, a woman can make one child a year, but a man can make many, 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 many. And they actually, this is what they called the military system. This was a child-making system. Yeah, even all of the words that we still use for the military are still preserved in this system of which they use to create all of the people rather than murder all of the people. Yeah, we murder all of our sons in our new military system and kill them off. Whereas in this system is how we created all the people. And you see it in all of the words: soul, bier, soul, drinker, yeah, or corporal, it's taken in, or copy 10, Anyway, the cap of the prick head. Anyway, I don't want to go into the offering system. This gets a little wonky and taboo, but there is quite a bit of taboo. But I would just like to point out, if you're looking at the taboo aspects of this saga, I just want to remind of all the fucked up shit that's happening in the world today. All the horrific, sexually broken, just disgusting, violent, horrible society, moralless society we live in today, that's so far away from nature, and so far away from all of that, that to judge this saga on how we used to live is, I don't know what to tell you after that. But to continue on, this all was in paradise time. Yeah. And they used this honeycomb system to, and guess what they called the, so when the Allfather would make all of these sons, he would make maybe about 200 a year, something like that, over the course of about 50 years. And so you're talking about, there's about 2,000 ringlands supposedly around in paradise time, and they're all about 250 kilometers until the entire planet was planned. Plan et, one family, one plan, yeah, plan et, and only Earth is a planet. There are no other planets. Yeah, this is the only one with plants. A planet has to have plants. Everything else are stars, except for the sun is not a star. The sun is Udin, that is the creator. And, it's the sun is constantly churning out life all day, every day, constantly. This is, by understanding the sun, you can understand how life is and how this realm is constructed. And in the saga, it is our words. The humans were given the words to appreciate what Udin has made. But later, what happened is when the planet tilted, these ice walls broke the system apart. And during this ice time, the Atlantis time, is when you have these 10 tropical kingdoms that formed. You have the Hindustan people, you have the Peking people, the Peking, the Pole kings, the Chinese we call them today. You have the Aztec, Inca, Mayan. You have the Aboriginal of Australia. You have the Indonesian, the Hawaii people. You have the there's 10. Oh, and you have the Hellas people, and you have the Blues, which we call blacks today. But I think that's all 10. Yeah. There's a lot of mixing, but during this Atlantis time, when we were all disconnected from our father, you have all these brown-haired, and during Paradise time, everyone was brown-haired, brown eyes. It is during this ice time where blue eyes came, green eyes came, blonde hair, red hair, all of this came from ice time. And it is in ice time where the animals were domesticated, wheat, barley, rye, all these different grains, all these domesticated agricultural grains were developed, and all of our domesticated animals were developed. The clove-footed animals were developed from the goat. The chicken came from the peacock. We got our deck of cards, the 52 cards, to understand the seasons. Why is the ace? It's the Osir, the ace. It's the top. It's above the king. Yeah, that's the Osir. You have the 13. Everyone knows the deck of cards is representing the 52 weeks a year, seasons, stuff like that. But you have to form this new understanding and a way to survive in the ice. And about 10,040 years ago, the ice melted or about 11,040 years ago, the ice melted, was starting to melt, and the ice cap started sliding down, and they started sliding. All the stones and rocks from Finland and Sweden got pushed down into northern Europe, and Estonia, that's where it gets its name, is because all these big stones that were pushed down into Estonia. Um, and so this family, about 30 people, escaped again, and they went to this island that's in the middle of the Baltic Sea. It's called Gotland today. This comes from Goatland. This is the Bock land. This is the area where they have those huge and they have the big rune stones that are 6-7 feet tall that look like a big penis or keyhole. You can call it a keyhole, but we all know what it is. And this is telling the story of them fleeing hell, going to Gotland. And there's old videos of some of these original saga head Bacchanologists taking a look and at these stones and describing every detail of what the story these stones are telling. And you can see the offering system. You can see the key players, the grandmas, the Uka and Aka. Anyway, and so about 1,000, they were there for about 1,000 years. And now once the ice melted just enough, even more, they were able to leave the ice. And this is about 10,040 years ago that this period really ended. And these 10 brothers, so these guys, the Oster would make 12 sons. And the first one is like the king, like the bureaucratical king, whereas the 12th son is making all the people.
Right.
But these 10 other sons left the ice and reconvened and reconnected with all of the other 10 tropical kingdoms. This is where you get your Quetzalcoatl, your stories. You get all these. Where are these white-skinned people? Even if you look up, if you Google what mainstream says, they say blue eyes just came out 10,000 years ago. But it didn't exist before that. Give me a break, okay? How many generations of a tropical person do you have to leave inside, the ice before they turn white? Yeah, it's a very long time. They've been around for a very long time, and it was about 10,000 years ago when they left the ice and reconnected, with the other 10 tropical kingdoms. Now you start seeing agriculture pop up everywhere. You see, and this is where I'm really excited to talk to you, because I think this is where the astrology, the astrology comes in, because it's showing people how to live. It's showing people how to use the animals they created and brought to them. It's plant the seeds, when to plow, when to harvest, and how to live. But it wasn't as necessary in the tropical area, right? I'm in California personally. We get food that grows year round. The weather's pretty steady here, but you're talking about the North Pole. You have harsh winters, short summers, or the other way around. And having this way to encode all of this knowledge of how to live, how to make more people, when to make more people, all of that, you put it as a story in the stars. And then now you just teach people the stars or the astral bodies, and and then you can give all that knowledge and deliver all that knowledge. And there's many instances where the Oster understood that these certain civilizations weren't ready for the actual domesticated animals, so they only gave them agriculture, or the other way around. Just like in India, this Arctical man named Krishna came down and brought the Brahma cow, which is a really old Arctical cow. And these animals are domesticated in the ice, because if you can take a cow, a pig, chickens, you can keep them during wintertime in the barn and they don't die, that they're acclimated. They're naturally acclimated to these conditions.
Right.
Whereas you take a giraffe, it's going to, or some of these tropical animals, they're going to die up in, the ice time. So we know these domesticated animals came from the north, from the ice. Questions?
It's been fantastic, man. If people wanted to learn more about the Bock Saga, because we have about 3 minutes left, If people wanted to learn more about the Bock Saga, where would you guide them to look?
Absolutely. So that's great. The man Eeyore Bock released the story in 1984. His family made an agreement with the Swedish king that became a Christian and was basically wiping all these people out. This is the third destruction of which happened in 1050 AD. It was the final destruction of hell. And in 1058, and they knew they were coming. They made an agreement with the Swedish king at the time in 984 that they would keep their story and they wouldn't talk about it. And the Christian dome was coming up and everything. And so they made an agreement for 1,000 years. They would hold the story and tell the story in 1,000 years. So they've been keeping this story for 1,000 years, and he told it to a small group of friends in 1984. There are videos of these men retelling this saga. There's also the original storyteller, Eeyore Bock. My favorite is Jim Chesner. He is originally from Texas, so he's a native English speaker. And you just look up that name, Jim Chesner. And all of it, he's done plenty of podcasts in the past. He has passed away a few years ago during COVID, so he's no longer with us. But yeah, and Michel Merle, Michelmerle. He is he's from the Netherlands, and he's a great storyteller as well. There's some old videos of him in Hawaii in the 90s. But all these old recordings are great to get the majority of the story from. There's some not hidden, but there's way more detail in other videos and things like that. There's websites. On my, I made an X account that's just Bock Saga X, and I've tried to compile all of the possible videos I can find of these men being interviewed or telling the saga. There's a good one on YouTube, The 8 Powers, and by Jim Chesner. It's about 5 hours long, 3-part series. That one's pretty good as well. And yeah.
This has been fantastic.
I'm just here to shill Bock Saga. I don't need any. I don't need anything from anybody.
This is fantastic, brother. So thank you so much for coming on. I'm gonna have this uploaded right away.
Hell yeah!
And then I'll send you the link, and then you could share it all over social.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Micah. I hope we can follow up and do some more, because there's so much. There's hours and hours to be discussed about any little aspect of it. So.
You have my X, or I don't call it X. You have my Twitter. Just DM me, give me some ideas, and we'll see if we could stretch out another hour or an hour and a half.
All right. Sounds good. Cool. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Dustin.
All right. Peace.
Bye.